Hey there everybody, welcome back to the channel. So today we're diving into the multicolored cards. This is part 6 of the Brothers War set review for Limited and Constructed. And multicolored cards, there's no commons, so it's just uncommons, rares, and mythics. And with the uncommons, multicolored cards, these you're going to see a lot of the signpost cards that help direct you into the deck archetypes for Limited and how those decks play. So we'll cover a lot of that, and then we'll get into a few meld cards and some really juicy rares and mythics. So let's go ahead and jump into it. First up are our uncommons, and the first card is Arbalest Engineers. For 1, a red and a green. It's a creature, human artificer, 2/2 power and toughness. And it says when Arbalest Engineers enters the battlefield, choose one. Arbalest Engineers deals 1 damage to any target. You can put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. It gains trample and haste until end of turn. And you can create a tapped, or you can create a tapped Power Stone token. This is a pretty diverse card, a lot of utility for it. I like the fact that it has a little bit of tiny removal with it to deal damage to any target. Or it can just put a +1/+1 counter on a creature, even including itself, so it could come into play as a 3/3 trample haste creature. Or if you need to ramp, you can create a tapped Power Stone token. So it's definitely got some good uses. I think for this card, I'm going to go ahead and I like it enough where I'm going to give it a high rating for Limited. I think it's something where if you're playing in these color pairs, you definitely have to have it in your deck. It's a solid card. For Constructed, probably go mid. This card, because of its utility, that's why I would rate it at a mid range. You probably see it used more in Commander, but it could make its way into some Constructed decks. It just depends on what type of deck you're playing. I could see it making into the Constructed decks mainly for its ramp ability with the Power Stones, and maybe for some aggro decks for its a middle option where you can put a +1/+1 counter on a creature and give it trample and haste. So yeah, I think we'll go high and then mid for Limited and Constructed for Arbalest Engineers. Next card is Battery Bearer. For 2, a blue and a green and a blue. It's a creature, human artificer, 3/4 power and toughness. It says creatures you control have tap to add colorless. This mana can't be spent to cast a non-creature spell. Whenever you cast an artifact spell with mana value 6 or greater, draw a card. Wow, so it turns all your creatures essentially into, gives them the ability that the Power Stone tokens have. And this card just screams ramp. And yeah, it's solid. I think if you're playing Limited with this, you'll definitely want to, with this color pair, you're definitely going to want it. I'm going to give it a high rating. I like it. Just due to the fact that you're going to be able to ramp out some really big creatures, and you'll be able to draw a card off of that. Plus, you can use that mana for activated abilities. Aside from artifacts, you can also use it to pay for any additional costs that you might incur while playing the game. So just as long as you're not casting non-artifact spells. For Constructed, I could also see this having some use. I think I'd give it a mid rating for Constructed. I think there's going to be some players that are going to be able to find some really creative uses for this card, and I could see it being in the deck. So probably make a lot of appearances in Commander too. So I think we'll go mid or high and mid for Battery Bearer. Our next card is Evangel of Synthesis for a blue and a black. It's a creature, Phyrexian human cleric. It's a 2/3 power and toughness. When Evangel of Synthesis enters the battlefield, draw a card, then discard a card. And then it says, as long as you've drawn 2 or more cards this turn, Evangel of Synthesis gets +1/+0 and has menace. So this definitely fits into the draw 2 or additional cards, any additional cards during your turn or during a turn. That it does pump up to a 3/3 if you've drawn your second or more card during a turn and has menace. That's pretty good for some aggression and for attacking. The only downside is that you don't really get a major benefit from its ETB, because you draw a card and then discard a card. Okay, that's good, but you don't get the addition of being able to attack with the +1/+0 and menace trigger on that same turn, which kind of stinks. Unless you're able to give it haste for some reason. So, solid card, good 2-drop. I like it. Definitely would fit in with the blue-black deck archetype. So, I think I'll give it a mid rating for limited. And for constructed, tough to say. I think I'll give it a mid rating, but it's probably at the lower end of that range. Or just better 2-drops around, but some people might find some uses for it, and it might fit into certain deck types. So I think I'll go mid for Evangelosynthesis. Our next card is Philigi Vanguard for 2, a red and a white. It's a creature, human soldier, 2/3 power and toughness. It has first strike, and whenever Philigi Vanguard or another creature enters the battlefield under your control, target creature gets +2/+0 until end of turn. That could be pretty powerful. As long as you have creatures to play and they come into play, you're going to be given at least one creature a +2/+0 bonus. And this looks like it doesn't have a limit the number of times this can trigger, so this is pretty cool. And of course, Philigi Vanguard has first strike too, so if you can give itself that bonus and probably get a pretty good attack off with it. So I think the only drawback is that it's a little pricey at 4 mana for the mana value. But other than that, I like it. It's a solid card. I think I'm going to give it a mid rating for limited. And I'll go mid for constructed. I'm sure people will find good uses for this. Mainly in Commander, but still, it's I can see it still making some cuts in constructed decks. So we'll go mid across the board for that. Our next card is Hero of the Dunes for 3, a white and a black. It's a creature, human soldier, 3/2 power and toughness. When Hero of the Dunes enters the battlefield, return target artifact or creature card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. And creatures you control with mana value 3 or less gets +1/+0. Wow, that's pretty good. So if you can construct your deck to be mainly have a lot of creatures with or artifacts with mana value 3 or less, they're always going to get this bonus, and plus you get an extra card back. That kind of pays for itself. This card even becomes even better if you're able to blink it, so that's pretty cool. I'm going to give it a mid rating for limited, and I'll do the same for constructed. This has its uses. Yeah, I feel that's pretty comfortable. There's some good utility for this card, and being able to get some useful 3-drops back from the graveyard, and especially in constructed. I can think of many 3-drops that can help you out and causing problems for your opponents. So mid across the board for Hero of the Dunes. Next card is Junkyard Genius for 1, a black and a red. It's a creature, human artificer, 2/2 power and toughness. When Junkyard Genius enters the battlefield, create a tapped Power Stone token. You can pay 1, a black and a red, and sacrifice another creature or artifact. Until end of turn, other creatures you control get +1/+0 and gain menace and haste. It's okay. I think some of the other 3-drops we just saw in Multicolor are a little bit better than this. However, it does give you a Power Stone token, and it does give you a sacrifice outlet that might help you with other death triggers. I think beyond that, there might be some other decent options, but I think in the black-red deck archetype, it's pretty decent. So I think I feel comfortable giving a mid rating for limited. I think it's firmly entrenched in that category. For constructed, I'll probably give it a low rating. There are just better options in a sacrifice deck to choose from instead of the Junkyard Genius, but still, you do get a tapped Power Stone token, so that is redeeming value for it and being able to ramp with things. So we'll go mid and low for limited and constructed for this card. Our next card is Skyfisher Spider for 2, a black and a green. It's a creature spider, 3/3 power and toughness with reach. When Skyfisher Spider enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice another creature. When you do, destroy target non-land permanent. And when Skyfisher Spider dies, you may gain 1 life for each creature card in your graveyard. If you do, exile Skyfisher Spider from your graveyard. Yeah, this definitely is the signpost uncommon for the graveyard. Creatures in the graveyard matter deck type, and the fact that you're able to, this kind of enables that still by sacrificing a creature and then being able to destroy a non-land permanent. That's pretty powerful. It's a good removal spell in a sense. I like it. I'm going to give it a high rating, and it's just extra additional gravy that you're able to, when it dies, you're able to gain life for each creature card in your graveyard. And it's a May, so you don't always have to do that. You can allow this to go to the graveyard and not exile it. But if you do need the life, you can exile it and gain that life. For constructed, I give it a mid rating. It'll have its uses. I mean, it is fairly decent, the fact that it does destroy a non-land permanent, but there might be other cards that people are going to choose over this for some kind of removal. But it does fit into certain deck types and help them out. So go high and limited, and mid and constructed for Skyfisher Spider. Next up is Third Path Iconoclast for 1 blue and 1 red. Creature Human Monk, it's a 2/1 power and toughness. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create a 1/1 colorless soldier artifact creature token. Yeah, this card's solid. Yeah, I mean, you build your deck right, you're going to be able to trigger this all the time. So I really like it. I'm going to give it a high rating for limited and for constructed. I can see many constructed decks where this card just goes off and just starts spitting things out. The neat thing about this is that there's no limit on the number of times this triggers per turn. So if you have a really low curve deck with a lot of cantrips or low costed non-creature spells, you're gonna be able to trigger this multiple times and get a soldier artifact creature token. So it's a solid card for 2 mana value. Our next card is Yoshin Dissident for 1 green and 1 white. Creature Human Artificer, it's a 1/1 power and toughness. Whenever an artifact enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Yeah, if this is ever the set to take advantage of a card like this, this is the one. Power Stone tokens. We just saw the previous card spits out artifact soldier creature tokens, so that would trigger off of this, and just a bunch of other, artifact creatures and non-creature artifacts that you can take advantage of with this card. So I like it. I'm going to give it a high rating for limited. I think for constructed, I'll give it a mid rating for now. It could be even better in the right deck type, right build around for constructed. It'd be worthy of a high rating, but yeah, I think you're gonna see some pretty good use for it in limited though. So we'll go high and limited and mid and constructed. Our next uncommon is Yoshin Tactician for 2, a white and a blue. It's a creature, human soldier. Other soldiers you control get +1/+1. It has a 3/4 power and toughness. So that's a pretty straightforward card. This is definitely your signpost uncommon for the soldier archetype that we've been seeing in mostly white and blue. And this is kind of the curve topper, and that pumps your team. So I like it. Pretty solid. I'll give it I'm going to give it a mid rating for limited, but if you have it in a soldier deck, it's high for sure. Definitely high. And same thing for constructed. In the right deck, you can take advantage of its pump ability where it makes your creatures bigger. Definitely want to have it be soldiers though. So good card for the soldier deck type. Good payoff. So we're moving on to the rares now. Our first rare is Deathbloom Ritualist for 3, a black and a green. It's a creature, elf, warlock, 3/5 power and toughness. You can tap to add X mana of any one color, where X is the number of creature cards in your graveyard. So this is a huge payoff for that Creatures in the Graveyard Matters deck, and this lets you tap for big mana, and I really like it. I'm sure people are going to find some great uses for this in constructed as well, and I just see all upside for this for getting large amounts of mana with this card. I can even see it fitting into a 5-color deck and utilizing just all the different resources you have for your deck with your hand, your battlefield, the graveyard, and being able to take advantage of that with this card by utilizing getting all that mana for creatures in graveyard. So I'm going to give it a high rating for limited, and same thing for constructed. I just think it'll see play in both formats, especially in Commander. Commander decks are going to love this card. Our next rare is Hazir Loyal Bodyguard for 1 red and a green. It's legendary creature, human soldier, 3/3 power and toughness. Sacrifice Hazir Loyal Bodyguard. Legendary creatures you control get +1/+0 and get indestructible until end of turn. I'm not sure how many legendaries we're going to see in limited, so it's a good utility legend that can help your force, but maybe you have a better legend that you can use this to protect it with. But I think I'll give it a mid rating for limited. I think you'll probably get a few more legends aside from this if you were to play a limited deck, and this could be good to help it out. For constructed, do the same thing. I think there might be some. If you're playing like a Joda legendary 5-color deck, this is a perfect card for it, and this fits right in with it. But you know, there's other decks that run some decent legends as well, and you can use this to pump it and give it indestructible. So. Good utility legendary card. Our next rare is Harbin, Vanguard Aviator for 1 white and 1 blue. Legendary creature, human soldier, 3/2 power and toughness, and it has flying. Whenever you attack with 5 or more soldiers, creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain flying until end turn. Yeah, this is a solid card. You're definitely going to get a solid rating out of this for. I think I'll give it a high rating for limited and constructed. You're going to be able to get soldier tokens with this card, or sorry, soldier cards with take advantage of its abilities quite a bit. So I think it's something that you'll be able to use both in limited and constructed. And if you open this in your limited cards, you'll probably be pulled towards this color pair, and this is an excellent card to pull you in that direction. And for constructed, using building a soldier tribal deck. With tokens and soldier cards, this just continues to make it better, and really allows you to be able to send your creatures over the top for the win. So I like it. Nice solid 2-drop for the soldier deck type. Our next rare is Legions to Ashes. It's for 1 white and a black sorcery. Exile target non-land permanent an opponent controls, and all tokens that player controls with the same name as that permanent. Interesting. Yeah, this is a overall useful removal spell, but it's also even better if you're playing against an opponent who has tokens that are copies of permanent that they have. So really solid. I'll give it a high rating for limited. Same thing for constructed. I'd be surprised at how this would work out nicely in constructed, and getting rid of annoying annoying tokens that are copies of a permanent. So, and in Commander, this could even be better, because I've seen many Commander decks where they've just got a legion of tokens that are copies of something, and this would clear the board for against your opponent. So, solid removal. Next rare is Mishra, Tamer of Makfawa for 3, a black and a red. It's a legendary creature, human artificer, 4/4 power and toughness. Permanents you control have ward, sacrifice a permanent, and each artifact card in your graveyard has unearth for 1, a black and a red. Wow. So yeah, this is definitely I can see this definitely. This is a solid build around if you want to build artifact deck with this Mishra. But the fact that it also gives all your permanents ward, sacrifice a permanent, it's going to make getting rid of your permanents really tough for your opponent. So I like it. I'll definitely give it a high rating in limited. For constructed, let me give it a mid rating for constructed. However, in the right deck, right build around, I would give it a high rating. But overall, I think I'll go mid, just due to the cost, the mana value of it. In the right deck, it's definitely worthy of the high rating. Our next card is Queen Kyla bin Krug for 1, red and a white. It's a legendary creature, human noble, 2/3 power and toughness. You can pay 4 and tap her to discard all cards in your hand, then draw that many cards. You may choose an artifact or creature card with mana value 1 you discarded this way. Then do the same for artifact or creature cards with mana value 2 and 3. Return those cards to the battlefield, activate only as a sorcery. Huh, interesting. Decent card early to mid game, but as your hand becomes more depleted, so with the cards you discard, you have an opportunity to get 1, 2, and 3 mana value artifacts or creatures back and put them on the battlefield. And those cards are then replaced by cards you draw. But as you get later in the game, depending on what type of deck you have, draw quantity is going to be less and less. If you're playing in a aggro or mid-range deck, if you're playing in a control deck, your hands should be pretty full most of the time. So that might be something to consider, and you might get the most value out of that with with a card like this in a control deck. I'll give it a mid rating for limited. I kind of want to see how this card plays out to truly know how it does. Until I see it, I think mid is probably pretty accurate for it. Same thing for constructed. Kind of want to see how that goes before I can definitively say if it's worthy of a higher rating than mid. So mid across the board for Queen Caleb bin Krug. Our next rare is Tanos the Toymaker for 3 green and a blue. Legendary creature, human artificer, 3/5 power and toughness. Whenever you cast beast or bird creature spell, you may copy it, except the copy is an artifact in addition to its other types. Interesting. So, and then the copy becomes a token. So here's something that spits out a copy of a beast or a bird creature spell, and they're token copies. Yeah, I mean, if you're playing beasts or birds, it's solid. I haven't seen too many of them in this set. I know that there's a few we've come across, but I could definitely see being pretty solid in as a tribal type card in constructed. I think for limited, I'll give it a mid rating, and constructed, I think constructed do the same. Its mana value is kind of high. In the right tribal deck, though, this is worthy of a high rating, but overall, I'll probably just go mid for this card. Our next rare is Takesha, Digside Mentor for 1, a green, a white, and a blue. Legendary creature, human artificer, 4/3 power and toughness. It says creatures you control have vigilance and tap surveil 1. And then you can pay 2 green, 2 white, and 2 blue, and exile Takesha, Digside Mentor from your graveyard. Return any number of target artifact cards with total mana value 10 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, and activate only as a sorcery. So you're paying the activated ability is a total of 8 for a converted mana value to pull this off, and you have to exile her. All your creatures do have vigilance. That's pretty good. This might pair pretty well with that the uncommon we previewed with the blue or green-blue uncommon that we saw. This might go pretty well with that. That might help you activate her ability pretty easily, but lets you return an artifact card with mana value 10, any number of artifact cards, that is, with mana value 10 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. It can be pretty powerful if you set it up right, but it does require a lot of setup, so I think I'm going to give it a mid rating for limited. Same thing for constructed. This does require some setup to make it work right, but I like the flavor of it. Pretty cool. I think you just have the right cards paired with it, you'll be able to get the maximum value out of this card. Our next rare is Urza, Prince of Krug for 2, a white and a blue, 2/3 power and toughness. Artifact creatures you control get +2/+2. And you can pay 6 and create a token that's a copy of target artifact you control, except it's a 1/1 soldier creature in addition to its other types. Interesting. So you can turn non-creature artifacts into soldier tokens, and they're just 1/1 power and toughness. That's pretty cool. But then you get the bonus, the +2/+2. So they end up becoming at the very least 3/3s for activation cost of 6. Yeah. This actually fits into the soldier deck nicely too. So I'm going to give it a high rating for limited. And I think I'll do the same for constructed, mainly in the soldier deck or a artifact deck. I think a lot of people will be able to get some good use out of this. Plus, the activated ability could be offset by if you have a lot of Power Stone tokens, so it could end up being a negligible cost for you. And with all the support in this set for soldiers, and plus the bonus Urza gives, I think you'd be in a pretty good spot playing this card. So we'll go high across the board for Urza, Prince of Krug. Okay, so moving on to the Mythics now. Oddly enough, our first Mythic is actually a colorless artifact, but it's really a multicolor card, and you'll see why here. It's Blade Coil Serpent for X and 6. It's artifact creature Serpent with a 5/4 power and toughness. When Blade Coil Serpent enters the battlefield, for each 2 blue spent to cast it, draw a card. When Blade Coil Serpent enters the battlefield, for each 2 black spent to cast it, each opponent discards a card. And when Blade Coil Serpent enters the battlefield, for each 2 red spent to cast it, it gets +1/+0 and gains trample and haste until end of turn. So the reason why I say it's really a multicolor card is, of course, it mentions blue, black, red as part of its color identity for triggered abilities, but you're really only going to want to spend colored mana on this in those colored pairings, like 2 blue, 2 black, 2 red, or all 3 of them. And you can do that just by paying 0 for X and then paying 2 of each color for the 6. And you'll at least get 1 trigger from each of those different colored triggers for the creature. I think that's pretty good. And of course, the more you spend of those colors, the more triggers you can get. And that can be pretty powerful for this card. I think it's pretty decent. If you think about it, it comes into play. You draw a card, they discard a card, and it gets +1/+0 trample and haste. That can get pretty crazy. And the more mana you have, the better. So I think I give it a high rating for limited. It's gonna be kind of tough to pull off in limited, just due to the fact that this set doesn't appear to have a lot of color fixing. But if you're playing Grixis limited deck and you're able to pull this off, you'll get a pretty good impact. That's good for you in the game. For constructed, I'm going to give it epic because you do have access to all the different mana fixing lands and different mana fixing creatures and artifacts. So you'll be able to have much more control over what kind of mana you spend to that you have in play as well, and that you spend to cast the Blade Coil Serpent. So especially in Commander, I think this thing will just go off. So pretty cool card. I like the flavor for it, like the design, and it's I just hate to be on the receiving end of some of the triggers that this creature presents. Our next mythic is another colorless artifact, Clay Champion for X and 4. Artifact creature construct. It's a 2/2 power and toughness. Clay Champion enters the battlefield with 3 +1/+1 counters on it for each 2 green spent to cast it. And when Clay Champion enters the battlefield, choose up to 2 other target creatures you control. For each 2 white spent to cast Clay Champion, put a +1/+1 counter on each of them. So this is just the white-green version of the card we just previewed, but looks like just for the not counting the X mana, just for the 4, you spent 2 white and 2 green to cast it. It would come into play as a 5/5, and you'd be able to put a +1/+1 counter on up to 2 other target creatures. That's pretty good. And of course, the more pairs of green and white you spend to cast it, the bigger it gets and the bigger the creatures are that you're going to be able to target. So I think it's a pretty solid card. Same kind of deal. This is actually a little bit easier to cast than the previous card, the Blade Coil Serpent. And I think you'll be able to pull this off a lot easier in limited. So I'll give it an epic rating for limited, and same thing for constructed. I think this is just going to become a huge beat stick against your opponents. And not to mention all the other benefits you have for having an artifact, creature, or a construct on the battlefield. So I think it's pretty cool, and it's a good addition to your force when you're attacking your opponents. So our next card is Mishra, Claimed by Gix. But before we cover this card, I want to do a quick review for the other card that this card works with, for the Meld ability. And that card is Phyrexian Dragon Engine. We covered this in the red set review, but here's what Phyrexian Dragon Engine reads. It's a 3 artifact creature, Phyrexian Dragon, 2/2 power and toughness. And it has double strike, and it says when Phyrexian Dragon enters the battlefield from your graveyard, you may discard your hand. If you do, draw 3 cards, and you can unearth for 3 and 2 red. And in parentheses it says melds with Mishra, Claimed by Gix. So here's Mishra, Claimed by Gix, the multicolored side of it. It's 2, 1 black, 1 red. It's a legendary creature, Phyrexian Human Artificer, 3/5 power and toughness. Whenever you attack, each opponent loses X life and you gain X life, where X is the number of attacking creatures. If Mishra, claimed by Gix, and a creature named Phyrexian Dragon Engine are attacking, and you both own and control them, exile them, then meld them into Mishra, lost to Phyrexia, it enters the battlefield tapped and attacking. So these two meld together and give you a really cool giant creature to work with. And that is Mishra, lost to Phyrexia. And when it flips to the other side with the melded creature, it's is a legendary artifact creature, Phyrexian Artificer, 9/9 power and toughness. Whenever Mishra, lost to Phyrexia, enters the battlefield or attacks, choose 3. That's pretty good. Target opponent discards 2 cards. Mishra, lost to Phyrexia, deals 3 damage to any target. Destroy target artifact or planeswalker. Creatures you control gain menace and trample until end of turn. Creatures you don't control get -1/-1 until end of turn. And then the last one is create 2 tapped Power Stone tokens. So you get to choose 3 of these. That's going to be pretty wild, the fact that it's this triggers on when it enters the battlefield and also when it attacks. If opponents are able to allow you to leave this on the battlefield unchecked, odds are pretty good that you're gonna win the game. This card is just a house and is gonna cause a lot of problems for your opponents, where you're gonna be able to just destroy their permanents, deal damage to them, make them discard cards. It just depends on what kind of deck they're playing, but pretty cool. I love the flavor behind it. I think this card will see most of its play in Commander, but there are going to be some people that are able to pull it off in Standard or Pioneer or something like that with a build around. So that being said, for this card and Mishra, claimed by Gix, I think I'm going to give it a high rating for both limited and constructed, because you still have to be able to pull off the meld, but that's one of the downsides of it. They can destroy one of those creatures, and if they do that, you're not going to be able to pull it off. So yeah, I think high is a good rating for this type of meld creature. Our next mythic rare is Saheeli, Filigree Master, for 2, a blue and a red. It's a legendary planeswalker, Saheeli. You can +1 loyalty, and to have it her scry 1, you may tap an untapped artifact you control. If you do, draw a card. That's pretty cool. You can -2 loyalty and create 2 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature tokens with flying. They gain haste until end of turn. Or you can -4 her loyalty. You get an emblem with artifact creatures you control get +1/+1, and artifact spells you cast cost one less to cast. It's pretty good. Yeah, I like the fact that she lets you scry and then draw. And if you have Power Stone tokens, this is going to be pretty easy for you to get the max benefit for the +1 loyalty. And even then, you're able to spit out some flying Thopter tokens. That goes unchecked. You're going to be able to create quite the army of quite the armada actually of flying Thopters. So I'm going to give her a I think I'll give her a high rating in limited. The only reason I don't give her epic is because she doesn't create Power Stone tokens for you to tap. Although you can tap the Thopter tokens if you need to use the +1 ability to draw a card. I think I'll do the same for constructed. I think she's pretty solid. She's not over the top type of planeswalker, but she's pretty good. She would fit in naturally with a artifact themed blue-red deck. It's pretty solid for a planeswalker though. Our next card is Sarenth Great Worm for 4 red and a green. It's a creature worm, 7/6 power and toughness, has trample, and whenever a land enters the battlefield, create a tapped Power Stone token. Yeah, so basically it has landfall, create a tapped Power Stone token. I think this is pretty good. It's a big body for 6, 7/6 trampler, and it spits out mana producing tokens. I'm going to give it an epic rating for both limited and constructed. This obviously screams ramp, and I think you're going to see some ramp red-green decks in constructed. This could also go well in a teamer style deck with blue, green, red, and this fits in naturally with it. And for limited, same thing. Yeah, you could probably splash this in a blue, green deck. That's the ramp deck archetype, or you can just go a Gruul version of ramp and just start casting a lot of big artifact creatures and or big trampoline creatures all together. So we're a pretty good aggro deck. So I like it. I think there's going to be some pretty wild stuff you'll be able to do with this card. So I'll give it an epic rating across the board for Sarenth Great Worm. I think this might be our last mythic. It's Urza, Lord Protector, for 1 white and a blue. It's a legendary creature, human artificer, 2/4 power and toughness. Artifact, instant, and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Well, that's pretty good. You can pay the activated ability of 7. If you both own and control Urza, Lord Protector, and an artifact named the Mightstone and Weakstone, exile them, then meld them into Urza Planeswalker, activate only as a sorcery. So the only part we're going to preview here is the first ability, which is pretty good just for Urza by itself. And that's something that I could see being used in an artifact deck or a Spells Matter deck, and in a good control deck or anything like that. So for the meld side, we will preview the other side of it when we do the artifacts for the Mightstone and the Weakstone, and then we'll preview that card, and then the backside for the full version of the meld card. But for this card, I think I'm going to go ahead and give it a high rating for both limited and constructed, just due to the fact that it's a good card that offers a discount for you casting artifacts, instances, sorceries, and makes them easier to cast, and then a threat of activation to be able to merge into Urza Planeswalker. But we'll have to see how that card is when we do artifacts. So high rating for Urza Lord Protector. We've come to the end of the multicolored cards. Not as many multicolored cards as there are the regular 5 colors, but quite a few powerful ones. So pretty impressive for the multicolor run. Next up, we're going to be doing the artifacts, and that should be pretty fun. We'll be able to review the other side of Urza Lord Protector and check out the Urza Planeswalker melded card. But so tune in for part 7 with the artifacts. If you like the video, you can subscribe to my channel, MTG Rogue Players. Hit that subscribe button, hit the like button if you like the video, leave a comment if you like. And until we do the artifact video, which should be coming up soon, we'll see you next time, everybody. Take care.